All right, folks, we'll call the March 18th Town Building Committee meeting to order. Our first business is review proposal from Meld on peak load in emergency power generator. I think that's you.
Mike, do you want to come up here so you can get on the mic? The mic for Mike.
This mic?
The mic
That mic's
the
for
mic
Mike.
All right. Mike. Well, thank you guys for having me.
So the idea of a generator came up again, and speaking to Jackie, she said she was not able to secure a grant for the generators, and we wanted to help. So the idea in conversations back and forth, what we'd like to do is put a generator behind the police and fire station that will pick up the entire campus, 100% of the load, no problem. Everybody in town wants to charge their electric vehicles. Anything that the building's designed to handle the entire campus, both senior center and town hall, as well as the public safety building. We just need a small parcel of land. The last time I came to you, we were talking about an energy park, which would include solar and battery. What we want to do, we're still in the early stages of this because we're going to try to pursue grants for it, or potentially ARPA money. But we would like to have an island, so we would have a microgrid, it's called. We would like to heat up the entire campus. If it's going to be an extended outage, 12 hours, longer, couple days, 2 or 3 hours even, what we'd like to be able to do is feed down South Main Street and pick up the solar and battery project that are already on our system. That would unlock it, because right now without power, no solar generates and the battery cannot contribute at all. It's not designed for backup. But what that would do we would be able to pick up more load. We could pick up the shopping plaza, so grocery store would be open. The dairy, we could open the dairy. Again, this is still very early in the planning stages, but it sets up very well for grant money to be able to do that. And all the while provide emergency generation for the new public safety and town hall and senior center campus. So that's where we're at. I've got some background. Again, after our conversations last year, I didn't really pursue it that much because, you know, you guys were all set, so to speak. So once I found out, I re-engaged town administrator and assistant town administrator, and there is some interest in going forward with something like this.
So there are a couple components that we're looking at. One is trying to be sensitive to the fact that another proposal had come forward previously that was, thanks but no thanks. This is not that.
I don't know if I would say that, though, because I think what we did is we referred it to, I mean, we're not the stewards of the land, so you're asking for easements and what can go there. We're charged with building buildings. I think that's kind of what I said at the last year ago. So we're still charged with that. So if there's a request to do it, as long as the select board wants us to move forward with it and have us find a location, we'd be, I mean, from my perspective, I don't have a problem with it, but I still think it's the same process. I don't think we're step one. I think we're, in all likelihood, step two or three.
Yeah, what's different about it this time from last time is obviously a battery and solar need a bigger
We had talked
footprint.
about that last year, too. Yeah.
This really doesn't need much of a footprint, and we don't need control of the property. We're going to own the generator. If you don't want it there anymore, it can be moved, right? But you're going to want emergency generation there. And that's basically, I guess it's in our mutual interest to see it through. So we're not concerned so much, we have a memorandum of understanding. We can turn that into a legal document where everybody's comfortable with, all we need is access to it, right? And to be able to use it, that's all.
Yep.
So for that part of change, we don't need any care, custody, and control of the land.
And from the select board perspective of things, it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg, and I don't want to speak for the board, but from what I've experienced so far, especially for things like this, when it goes to the board, they want the opinion of the building committee before they make any type of determination, which is kind of ironic, because I'm sure you all would like to have the opinion of the board before you make some type of determination. So we are going to them tomorrow night, and that's why we kind of did it in this order, just on a high level, to see if it's something that you all would say, you know, absolutely not, or if it's something you're interested in exploring. I'm sure you probably want to see what this thing looks like. I mean, Mike, you want to describe it a little bit? It doesn't exactly blend in, but we've talked about finding ways to make it blend into the site where it wouldn't be a nuisance to neighbors and things like that.
Correct.
Would it be in the back? It'd be in the back
37
of the
feet, yeah.
property, correct?
Good memory.
The back of the property, so, but don't we, isn't that, wouldn't that be in the Eagle area?
Yes and no. So what we had originally talked about up until this afternoon, actually, when we got an email from Brian, which I don't know if you saw, but it included this. We had talked about the impervious parking area that was removed. Seemed like a prime location to put it because it was outside of the Eagle buffer, but the public safety building would largely screen it, so you wouldn't really have any line of sight to it, except for maybe if you're driving by at the right angle, in which case there'd be a fence and a vegetative screen that would be planted as part of the initiative. But that has since changed, and I don't know.
Is that a sketch?
Yeah, I don't quite understand. Like I said, we just got it. Would you like to walk us through what it's?
Yeah, essentially, so Brian marked out this area that's 30 by 48 feet.
How long? I'm sorry?
30 by 48, so about half of the 90.
That won't work for us. The foundation is 92 feet long, so.
So I think when Brian was looking into this, he was mostly curious. We were guessing. We found 1,000 kW generator and built up all the most sound attenuation we could find and sound enclosure, and we thought that it would fit in this. So his question would just be, why is it 92 feet?
Because it's not 1,000 kilowatts, it's 2,500 kilowatts.
Okay.
And it's 92 feet, the footing itself is 92 feet long and 24 feet wide. We're going to need a transformer, we're going to need switches, we're going to need some more room for that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. So he's got the transformer here, and I think when I left Brian this afternoon, he was looking for a spot for the smaller transformer. But yeah, that would be really helpful if we could get a list of everything that.
Well, I don't know, I mean, these are not my drawings, these were done by another engineering firm, but it lays out what's already existing. And it's 92 by 24, literally just for the foundation.
I mean, I think from my perspective, I need to see something to understand what it looks like, if I have an opinion on it, first off.
Yeah,
In
I can
concept,
share these, I
Yeah.
suppose, but,
just in concept, I personally, I think this is a better, from what we were talking about before, for sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
more, it's more targeted towards the
and I
the
know.
facility as well. but-
Pass those. I hope I don't get into trouble for, they're stamped by somebody else, but, the stack itself is 37 feet tall, but it's just the stack. The bulk of the container is about 24 feet tall, I believe, so.
Those last two were the same, I think.
Yeah. Oh, other. So it was two sets, basically?
Oh, yeah, it's 2 sets. I have more if anybody else wants to see them.
So if the selectmen, if this is going to be potentially presented to the selectmen tomorrow, then you need a decision from us this afternoon.
And I would say it wouldn't even have to be something definitive, but maybe so much as if you're open to exploring it, then that's what I would pass on to them. But I think given that we don't have a definitive layout yet, and that maybe everybody's gonna wanna see realistically to scale what this thing's gonna look like on site relative to everything else, we have a little homework to do, but we didn't wanna dig into that if it was a non-starter with the group.
Yeah, I mean, because it's good size still, though, I mean, compared to what we were talking about before. So the main structure itself is how tall?
This,
Without the
about
stack.
24 feet.
24 feet without the stack. All right.
I believe that should be shown in one of the documents, I hope.
So, I mean, I think having an idea where it would go in relation to the design, I mean, this is an older plan too, that we don't have this, right, this is the back of the, where am I? Just make sure I'm looking at this.
I'm struggling to orient myself.
Back up as well.
It's the grass area between public safety parking and the back.
It
of
is, right,
public
okay,
safety
yeah,
building.
yep, okay, so that's where I thought we were.
Like, cause that's the.
So this doesn't,
security gate.
this isn't here. I mean, we're not building this parking lot, and to be honest, half that parking lot was in the zone for the Eagle anyway, so. I think it would probably be good to at least lay it out with the Eagle buffer as a starter, and then let's see what we can, what you come up with. I mean, I ideally, if the select board tomorrow is saying, that they're interested in exploring this to provide the emergency power to the off-site parcels that you're identifying, which I'm actually in that area, so I'm assuming that would power me as well, so that's great, but, I mean, all joking aside, though, I mean, that's a kind of more of a town discussion, and if they're comfortable with that, and they'd like to see us make something happen, I think we can. Is that how everybody feels, or, George?
Now, what does this do to the bidding process? I mean, bids are due, what, the end of this week?
28th.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for a little while, and it would be independent of that, so it would have no real impact, or if there was any expense in terms of a change order, it'd be offset by
Yeah, so
whatever savings.
if I may too, George, I talked with Brian LaRoche about this on Friday afternoon. So in terms of scale in the budget, Meld would not only provide this generator that provides both peak power and emergency generation, they would also provide the diesel generators that we would need to be NFPA compliant and to ensure that there's no life safety issues. The radio room, certain technology would all be on these backup diesel generators, which we're already planning for diesel generators, which at Town Hall COA in the current bid documents is just enough power to meet life safety code standards. There's nothing else. We can't run that building as a shelter. It's just the code minimum for Town Hall COA. And then for public safety, it's enough for booking, technology, servers, radios, and then the life safety stuff. So this would basically create a cost savings of roughly $400,000 in our budget, because Meld would take on the cost of the diesel generators. Our electrical contractor would still have to install them, and they would be a part of our bid package because of the way code compliance works. So our electricians would still put everything in, but that's part of the conversation that we had with Meld, is that they, by providing the peak generator / emergency generation package, they would also cover the costs of our diesel generation that meet all of the code. We pulled public safety in. That was one of their requirements, was that those diesel generators that meet NFPA, that ensure that there's no downtime. The generator Mike would be proposing does have less than a minute when it switches over when power goes out, but we want to make sure those diesels are there as backup because it is our public safety emergency operations center. So it would be roughly $400,000 of savings on the budget side. It would coexist with the existing bids, though there'd be some slight redesign on the electrical engineering plan. And then there would be something that we haven't done the math on yet, which I know you're going to want to see from me in the near future as a former town accountant, what the cost savings would look like in the outlying years for the maintenance of the generators, which all three would be under Meld to do maintenance on. They'd be in charge of maintaining the fencing and any arborvitae, and so on and so forth. But we're working on all those numbers. I can only give you the $400,000 right now, though.
So there'd be no loss of time, basically, and from a budget perspective, it would net a cost savings. Beyond that, we had discussed and extremely loose numbers, but another benefit of Meld putting this in is to the ratepayer, and that it would help shave off peak hours and peak rate hours, which would result in a savings to Meld, an exact number that hasn't been identified yet, but as part of that conversation and what we're currently negotiating, the MOU, is that if this were to move forward, a percentage potentially of that savings would be turned back to the town annually as well. So it would be an annual, small, but an annual revenue source on top of that that could be earmarked towards, maintenance of something on site in perpetuity, or trails, or open space, or something like that.
This does go
We're
back.
not going to run into change orders because the site prep have to be changed to whatever.
For the size of it, I mean, I think where this is gonna go, I wouldn't expect it to be. I mean, because it's kind of where the other generators were gonna be. It would probably just push into what was gonna be that police area expansion parking lot thing that they had. So, I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. I wouldn't expect it to be a biggie, right? I mean, I'm assuming you've seen it the same way, like, right? So.
Yeah, the footprint of this thing is, what, twice as big as what was sketched out here?
Yeah.
In terms of the
So
length
what
of
do you say,
these?
30 by 100, is that what you were saying?
Well, 24 by 92.
24 by 92?
24 by 92 is a foundation size, so.
Right. So basically, what we were gonna build for our parking lot area, 2 spaces, almost the entire width of it.
So this is covering, this is kind of similar in the sense to the discussion last year in terms of looking to shave off, reduce the cost for electric customers, because rather than buying and paying extra for hitting that, was it some threshold, you'll turn on the generator and you'll provide it directly rather than having to bring it in. And so,
Yes, what we would do is we would shave our peak, basically. So instead of being at 22 megawatts, we'd be at like 20 megawatts. So we pay a transmission fee monthly, and we pay a capacity payment monthly, but it's based on one annual peak. So if we hit each of those peaks, it'll reduce what we owe for both transmission fees and capacity fees. And out of that savings, we would generate the ability to, I shouldn't say kick back, but pay back a little bit to the town and pay for the cost of the generator as well as the other 2 generators.
And this would support if we did solar on the buildings in the future, obviously, right? I'm assuming that would tie right in, and it's all dovetails, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, once this generator's on, both buildings are going to think that they're on utility power.
Right.
The idea is to hook it up to the primary system, so it'll be utility power basically as far as the buildings go. Cool.
So, there's an upfront cost savings, there's a long-term maintenance cost savings, there's a resiliency component, which is good. It helps ratepayers town-wide, which is good. But it looks the way it looks, to be upfront about it. So it's, it's something that you guys have to weigh.
One other piece to that too, just to add to the list, is that the building committee, if you'll recall, we spent a really engaging evening with the consultants for our HVAC system. And so the heat in the town hall COA is fully electric, and we have mostly electric in the public safety building, other than the bays, where we have like the quick release of heat when the big fire garage bays open. So any savings to the ratepayers is something that we're also going to see as well, because we are going to have 2 very electric powered buildings. And obviously, to Bill's bringing up the solar is a very good point, is that then the solar obviously helps mitigate that. But until we have a grant and that solar is put in place, we're going to have electric utility bills that are significantly different than what we're seeing currently in our operating budgets. So there's something of a cost savings there, though what that dollar figure looks like, I'm not there yet on the math.
But those bills would be significantly lower than if you were in North Andover or Oxford or
Exactly.
any neighboring town. Just,
Because we're
Gotta get
mills to
that plug
begin
in.
with.
I want to put that out there.
Yeah, we're mills to begin with, but then if your
Exactly.
rate goes down even further.
Correct.
That's a given, Mike.
Yeah, and I won't change that, Paul. I'll
There
do
you
my
go.
best.
so emergency situations where power is out entirely aside, typically this would only get fired up, aside from, I guess, monthly tests or some kind of regular testing to make sure it's still all working.
How often would we plan on
Well, we kind of
using
went
it?
for like all electric and said we were going to avoid all those other things, and now we're going to go put a large diesel generator, and then the next question is, how often will it
No,
be
natural
running?
gas.
Sorry, natural gas. How often will it be running?
Well, like I say, once a month, the peak gets set on the highest. Some months are easier to predict than others. So we dispatch the battery now, on average, 3 to 6 times a month, maybe 7 times a month. If it's, what happens is you predict a peak. December's coldest day in December could be on the 12th, right? But you don't know. So you might have to do it on the 12th. If it gets really cold, you see another cold front coming sometime around Christmas, it might have to, in a perfect world, it only has to be fired up 12 times. But in these events, it's typically 2 to 3 hours. They can be longer. They're getting harder to predict because the load shape of the region is starting to get flatter. Yeah, I could get into it a little bit, but I bore myself with it, actually, so. So the events may get longer, but the idea is to run it, to grab each of those peaks at least monthly. And it could be as little as 2 or 3 times, it could be as much as 5 or 6 times.
Mike, can I clarify something? The peak generator that also has emergency power is natural gas, but the 2 smaller
Are diesel,
generators
yeah.
are diesel, just so we're all
Yeah,
clear.
yeah.
So, Bill, you need a motion or just a consensus?
Well, I think, doesn't, to me, sound like we're really in a place for a motion, right? So it's gonna go to the select board, right? So if they're saying to explore this, then I think, then we get into the details and then make a motion.
One other question I had is, so I know I've seen Meld out there doing line work already for the existing lines that were running along the side of the golf course. Will those need to be upgraded further? Will there be additional capacitors or things needed for supporting
No,
the lines?
not everything's up there yet. There'll have to be at least a switch. Even if we don't do anything, we're gonna cut a switch in somewhere up there. We, in a schematic like this, we would just automate it.
More just thinking, we expected electrical work to cost a particular amount of money. If we're adding generation capacity that's going to go connect into everything else on Main Street, are there additional high voltage lines or other things that are actually going to be needed that are not in our budget right now to cover that?
No, we'll do that. Basically, what we need to do is just put switches up so that we can isolate a certain area.
Okay.
And even though you might live on Main Street or your business is on South Main Street, not every business is on the 23 kV system. I don't want to get into it too, so if somebody's house doesn't get lit up, and this is rare, right? We're hoping this never happens. Typically, our outages are extremely short, and the only time I would hope this would be used in this emergency is, a 1 or a 2 hour event where it wouldn't really be worth going out. But when the larger grid goes dark, that's when something like this would be invaluable to the community. And from what they say, those events are coming, right? We're running out of generation, and the weather events are getting more extreme, so. Yeah, hopefully we never need to do it, but.
And we still need the diesel generators, because that's, to be a true emergency generator, it has to have an alternative fuel source. We can't rely on natural gas.
Sure.
During a significant weather or other type of event, we need the diesel. And it's good because, I know at times we had talked about using the community center as a shelter, and I guess that isn't the case now, so this would make that happen.
And that opens us up to some grant funding too, Frank, for emergency shelters that we wouldn't have been eligible for.
Right. And then we also have to, it's not just an NFPA that governs that, it's the American Red Cross. So they do shelter surveys as well. I worked with the American Red Cross to do a shelter at the Home Manning School, and they were integral in, with their assistance and guidance on that. So that's another resource.
So if I were to communicate to the select board tomorrow night that you're open to exploring it, would I be telling the truth?
I think if there's a place that it'll fit, and that's fine.
Everybody in agreement? I think we are.
Thanks.
Right in the front green.
Yeah, that's a good spot for it. All right, next up, item number 2, review potential state and federal grants and potential letters of support. Who's handling this one, Jackie? Is this you?
So we have started working through, as many of you will remember, this time last year, we were applying for quite a number of state and federal grants. Some of the federal grants are related to congressionally directed spending through our legislators. The same process is happening at the state budget level with our legislative delegation on Beacon Hill. What we're looking for tonight is the board to authorize Bill as chair of the committee to sign any letters of support for grants as they come up on the committee's behalf, so that we can effectively and quickly make those applications to our various state and federal legislators. Some of the grants that we're applying for have to do with stormwater and the eco-friendliness component. Some of the grants have to do with the fact that we'll have all of our veteran services in one location, and that's a really great benefit for the veterans of our community, that they'll essentially have one stop for all their municipal service needs. Other grants will be for solar panels and other components of the project that we might seek additional funding for, but we're going in for a very competitive ask with both the federal and state delegations. Anything we can do to bring down the total second borrowing that we were authorized to do by town meeting in October, we're going to do. So we'd like your general support so that as we kind of work through the town budget and the town meetings time and all of these deadlines for state and federal, we can nimbly apply for all of the things that we're eligible for and have a letter of support from this committee in doing so.
Makes sense to me.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the committee authorize Bill Renault as chairman of the building committee to sign any applications for federal and state grants and any letters of support needed to support those or accept those grants.
Sounds good. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Last but not least, for our very short agenda, meeting minutes approval for the February 28th meeting. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's all I have on the agenda, unless somebody has something else that they want to bring up.
Mike, you can come back anytime you want.
Thank you.
Did have
Thank
some
you for-
updates from
Bring
Brian.
money.
Oh, you do have updates, okay. There we go.
So a few quick updates, and then just an approval from the committee.
That Brian didn't get it on the agenda. I don't know if they can
didn't?
vote on that. But
Okay.
it's under the threshold that Justin can
It
approve,
is,
so
All right, so maybe I'll
I would just update them, but they cannot vote
Okay.
on that.
So as I said, the filed sub-bid due date is next Thursday, the 28th, and we're still tracking for a GMP budget for early May. I have some notes here from Brian on the EV charging station grant. The town is eligible for a $50,000 grant, which is the max per address, provided by Mass Department of Energy. PCA is working with 3 providers right now who can sell the 13 dual-head EV chargers to the town and submit the paperwork for the grant submission. We expect to have those proposals within the next 2 weeks. We actually received one today for $98,000 from Voltrek. Once the proposal is approved by the committee, the vendor will submit the grant application through Mass EVIP, and it'll take 2 to 3 months for the application to be reviewed and approved by the state. Grants are awarded at a first-come, first-served basis until the funds are depleted. And once the grant is approved, the EV stations can be ordered. The scope of the EV chargers is the town provides the chargers to the construction project. Project scope covers the installation of the town-provided stations. So, yeah, we've got one so far. We're expecting 2 more pretty soon. So we'll be able to update you by the next meeting.
Awesome.
Next is the AV request for proposals, audiovisual. In conjunction with the town administrator's office and the current town AV vendor, the RFP will be finalized and sent out next week to 3 vendors to provide a lump sum proposal for the AV equipment and wiring on the project. We expect to have the proposals back within a month of sending out the RFP. And the security RFP, we're working with Convergent Technologies, a state purchasing approved vendor, to provide the proposal for the security scope of work. We're working to have this next month. And sorry for all the RFPs, but material testing RFP, we're working with, the town is required by the building code to hire an independent materials testing vendor for the project. The vendor will test and inspect items such as concrete supplied to the project, placement of reinforced steel, soils compaction, soils composition, structural steel, and wood framing. We've written this RFP and we sent it out to 5 testing companies to request for proposals, and so we'll be able to update you hopefully by the next meeting as well. Mass DOT permitting. Additional review comments were received by Mass DOT, and the town's traffic consultant, GPI, is preparing to respond to a response that will be sent out this week. The consultant has told us that the permit process should take another 90 days to complete with Mass DOT, but this should not affect our project schedule as it's mainly on Route 1
It's fast
14
tracking,
and-
90 days.
Yeah, it's curb cutting. And then the last item that we cannot vote on is I've been in touch with Skillings and Sons, who's a local driller, about the decommissioning the well on site. He can't give us a proposal to do the work, but he has offered to come down for $628 to pull out the pump and measure the pipe to give us an accurate reading on the linear feet that we're dealing with. We don't expect it to be too much, but at least we'll have it for budget numbers. We're anticipating a $4,000 to $7,000 budget for that work. But if we can move forward with that, then we can get him over there and we'll know what we're dealing with. So,
Do you need me to sign a proposal?
no, we can reach out to you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, there was a hand during the generator comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I totally missed you. There you go.
Just had a quick question. You know, I'm not opposed to the project or the proposed generator, but just one question I had was, would this potentially handcuff us, the location handcuff us in the future should we need to add parking? Because it's my understanding that the site would be where the overflow parking was going to go, correct?
Yeah, correct, that's what, that's.
It's since shifted, so now that site is potentially going to be used for drainage. So indirectly, yes, but also no.
Okay.
But we'll take it into consideration to make sure there's some alternative site.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if, you know, a year from now or 5 years from now, we determine we need more parking, we just want to make sure that we have the ability to add on if need be, so.
Yeah, we don't have really have a site plan from them of where they're looking at it, so, I mean, just kind of conceptualizing where it would go. Yeah, I mean, I think we could reconfigure it. I mean, part of the problem was that most of that parking lot was in the bird offset.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons we couldn't move forward with it, besides cost, but that was another reason, so.
Could go vertical, make the Chief Lacoste parking garage.
Could do that too?
2-3 stories.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I like it.
Hide the generator.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right on top of it. Be perfect. That's what we'll do. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. Sorry I missed you.
We all did.
Okay, there we go. All right, any other items before we take a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, let's do it. Thanks, everybody. Much appreciated.